everyone, and welcome back to the Black Lawyers Podcast. Today we have the beautiful Rachel Lindsay with us. How are you?
I'm so great. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yes, yes, yes. We've been wanting to have you on for a while. We spoke offline about how I felt like I manifested this interview because I do NAACP coverage, and you've been honored several times NAACP with your Higher Learning podcast. So I met Rachel actually in person briefly as we were rushing to get inside to the award ceremony that starts right on time.
Yeah.
And so yes, we're so happy to have you back, and congratulations again on another nomination.
No,
Again, your work does not go unnoticed.
thank you.
And I make all my guests play a round of hot topics with me before I jump into their individual questions. So you're in the hot seat. Everyone is not a lawyer that comes on hot topics, but you're an actual lawyer. So feel free to throw in any legal knowledge in terms of your responses. Um, you come from the reality TV space in addition to being an attorney. So this edition is reality T, hot topics. Okay, so we're going to
Okay.
start
Okay.
with our friend, Karen Huger, the Grand Dame at Real Housewives of Potomac. If you're listening and you don't watch Real Housewives of Potomac, you should. She had I believe this was her fourth DUI, but to her defense, because I'm going to defend her, she did have her other three were much long time ago, like in the 80s. So even though this is the fourth one, this is the most recent one. um, and so
No,
anyway,
they were between 2006 and 2011.
in the 80s that she got. Oh, maybe that was her first one. Okay,
Maybe that was
fine.
her first one. This problem spans decades, counselor. You are proving the point.
Right. Maybe I was helping her defense, but this was her fourth one. And so the judge said, okay, we're going to actually give you some jail time, which to be honest with you, I did predict. I was like, they're not going to get away. She's not going to get away with, but I predicted 6 months. So when he
Okay.
came back and said 2 years, I was like, ooh, I don't think Karen and her wigs could survive 2 years. I don't think Karen, and my wigs can't survive for 2 years. So I was just
No.
like, I can't. And then someone was like, oh, suspended. I was like, yeah, but that's still a year. She has 5 years of probation. She can't drive a car after she gets out for a year. So there's a lot going on with her sentencing. What are your thoughts about being on TV and when things happen in the law? Do you think being on TV affects sentencing once people are kind of on TV and they commit crimes?
I I think, and I am an avid Housewives watcher, I think that it can go one or two ways for you.
Okay.
If, for example, if any of your listeners watch Real Housewives of OC, there was another housewife who ran her car into a building.
Oh,
She was taken to jail. I mean, actually, I think she fled the scene. Either way it goes, she turned herself in. She didn't receive any jail time. No one was injured, thank God.
okay.
But it was a first DUI.
Okay.
All through the season, we watched her be extremely remorseful about what had happened.
Mm,
We watched her, she still would drink, but it wasn't the same. We didn't see her behave as we did before.
mhm.
I think that worked in her favor. That is not what we saw from Karen. Karen, we hadn't seen the footage yet from the night of the incident.
I know.
Karen denied. Karen was above it. Karen would snap on women who tried to accuse her of anything else. And I would imagine that she had seen this footage at this point. And so whether she did or didn't, the audacity of to not be humble enough to just say, I understand not talking about it, which she
Right.
did.
Try
But
to.
the way
She didn't
she
want
was
to.
acting,
Mhm.
she was like, I don't have a drinking problem. This is not true. The truth will prevail. I think it just worked against her. So I think that you could use TV and that platform to your advantage, which could be beneficial in court towards your argument of, rehab. I'm working with certain individuals. I'm doing community service, whatever it may be. Karen did none of those things, which is why I also think they were like, she's going to jail immediately, which is, I thought she would at
Oh
least have some
yeah,
time
I think a lot of people were like, "Oh, does she have to turn herself in?" I said, "No, they took her into custody same day." So
to quote the great Karen Huger, clink clink. Clink, clink. It, what was that? Yeah,
I
she
don't know.
said that.
She said that. Well, that's the
She said
irony.
that. She said that. And I've said this on my other podcast. I joke about it, but it is obviously serious. I mean,
Right.
four DUIs, whether they were dismissed or not, four times you were caught driving under some sort of
Yeah.
influence. Whether you had a great lawyer who was able to get it out, whatever, or a good judge or a
Right.
judge that was, lenient towards you, you were caught four times. Imagine how many times you might have been driving where you weren't caught. So it's incredible to me that she wasn't able, her license wasn't suspended already. She didn't have any type of device in her car to check her. She hadn't received any type of jail time. It's time
Yeah.
for the betterment of her too.
Yeah. And I think she said that. I mean, I know she has, I think, 90 days to appeal the sentencing. I think, 30 days to appeal the verdict, all these things. But I think she's accepted that she's got to go. And I think she's going to look at it as maybe a form of rehab for herself because she's certainly not going to be able to drink in jail. So she's going to actually be able to completely detox, both from alcohol and just, I think, whatever the pressures are around her that was leading her to, as she says, over medicate. Um, she's going to have a lot of time to think. And who knows? I mean, Jen Shaw's, who didn't have a DUI, I think she did something with internet fraud with elderly people.
Oh yeah.
Her sentence has been reduced and reduced, because she's doing good things. So they keep reducing it. So she actually is going to be home a little earlier. So who knows? Karen may end up coming home in under a year. Should be interesting to see if she wants to return to Housewives. Do you predict that she would want to return to Housewives after this? Or do you think
Oh yeah.
you think
But
so?
I don't think that they'll bring her back.
You don't think
Not
they'll bring
not
her back?
not more than a friend of. I
Oh,
just think the backlash would be too harsh of them rewarding bad behavior.
Oh, I see. I see. Yeah, I mean, it's something to think about. And I know a lot of times people get on these shows and they forget, yeah, it's reality TV, but it's the reality TV business. You sign a contract. That contract has a morality clause. And, Bravo is NBC. NBC, is Disney. So, like, and all of that. I don't know. I just think people sometimes forget that they signed those clauses and it's like, yeah, it's actually, and it's also up to what they believe is a moral
Yeah,
clause violation. So it could be something you feel like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, but if they think it's a big deal, then you're in
right.
violation of that. So yeah, I think that would definitely be something they would all have to take into consideration as it relates to Karen. Obviously, we wish her well, whether it's the full year, right under a year, however much time she's doing. We do hope that, to your point, more than anything, I think the sentence is just going to make her a better person. And obviously, we're rooting for everyone Black, so we're rooting for her to see the other side of this. So we shall see. We shall see. We
She
shall
going to
see.
jail, not even prison. Like that, it's going to be rough for her. Jail?
I don't know. And I don't know. And I don't know how often people can visit her. She's probably not gonna want anybody to visit her. I don't know, other than obviously her immediate family. And maybe Giselle, because I do think even though they fight on camera, Giselle is probably her oldest friend on the show.
Yeah,
So
for
yeah,
sure.
that should be interesting to see how that plays out. Well, moving from Potomac to Atlanta, we have the Real Housewives of Atlanta, Portia Williams, who is so close to getting her divorce from Simon Guobadia, a Nigerian businessman who, prior to their marriage, actually was fighting for his citizenship. He was fighting to be naturalized, but because he had done some fraud crimes here in the United States, it was holding up
I
his
didn't know.
application. Yeah.
Oh,
So prior to Portia coming along, he's been trying to get naturalized. He came here legally, overstayed, and was deported, came back, committed crime, deported, came back, and now, and of course, he legitimizes everything as much as possible with businesses and marrying an American. I think he tried to do it the right way this time. But of course, Portia is divorcing him. So I mean, he can't hang his hat. Oh, I'm married to an American citizen, I don't even think he has any children born here. So he can't hang his hat on any of those things. And so he unfortunately has slowed down her divorce for a variety of reasons, but this is the biggest reason now. He was detained by ICE about 2 weeks ago. What are your thoughts on him using his detention as a way to slow down the divorce process?
I am not as well versed in this area of the law, but I would imagine that this is not the way that he would want to do it. I mean, this is a man who clearly wants to live in this country. So I don't think that he's using this situation to, you know, prolong the divorce. I think that he would rather fight it outside of ICE.
Mm,
Uh,
I see what you're saying.
but you know what I mean? Like, I don't think that he's doing this on purpose. It sounds like he's got, first off, here's my opinion. After you just broke that down, he's got to go. This is literally, he's, don't come, like, you what? You were staying over here too long?
It's
You
for the
got deported?
Rachel is for the prosecution for both of these cases.
I mean, I'm just like, you stayed too long. You came over here legally, great. You made something of yourself, then you stay
Right,
too long, you get
right,
deported, you come back, you do some illegal stuff. But
right.
what? Like you are a candidate for a person who does not belong here. I'm sorry. And I am for immigration. I 100%. I condemn what is being done. But Simon, you're not making the case at
You're not
all.
making the case.
At all. But I do think I don't know what the law is,
Right, right.
but I feel like she should be able to, if anything, they should speed up the process because he probably is going to have to leave.
I see.
But I just don't know how that works.
What about virtual hearings? Do they do virtual hearings in divorce proceedings? Can't you appear virtually? And then,
Okay, yes, but having gone through my own divorce hearing, I don't
hearings
know
are
what
good.
access he has to his attorneys. I
Oh,
don't
I
know if
see.
there's like bank accounts, statements, whatever
Oh,
it
I
is that they're
see.
fighting
It may be too.
over property. It's like,
I
how
see.
does he get access to those funds? Like, who's helping? In the discovery like this, it's so intense. It's where all the legal fees come from, truly,
I see.
is the discovery of it all, subpoenaing certain things.
Oh, I
How is
see.
he able to do that in ICE? I don't know where they are in
Yeah.
the phase of their
Well,
divorce, but
he must have some access to his lawyer because his lawyer is the one that filed, the motion saying, "Hey, because he's been detained, we just want to hold off." And I think they just want to see, is he going to be deported right away? Like, is he going to be able to stay in detainment a little bit? Like you said, I guess there's just so many unknowns. So I do think there's going to be somewhat of an initial delay because we don't even know why he has been captured by ICE. I mean, it hasn't been, released why they even have him. And someone told me it could be anything. Like if you're here and you're not supposed to be here and you do even a traffic infraction, they can actually pull you. And with
yeah,
Trump, in this Trump era that we're living in, it doesn't actually take a lot for them to bring you in. It could
yeah.
be something minor. So I'm not saying he did anything major, but
I just assumed Portia turned him in until
I
I
was
just
gonna
read
say
about
it, but
the
I'm glad
delay.
that you said it.
I just assumed it was Portia. I was like, oh, Portia's like, get this man out of here. Not maybe realizing it would affect the divorce proceedings. When I heard he
Right.
was detained, I was like, Portia's so funny. I was like, Portia knows what
I'm
she's
glad you
doing.
said what I was thinking. I was like, I wonder if she has anything to do because, he's been online and very vocal for a while, been on social media, and ICE has never knocked on his door and detained him. And then all of a
Right.
sudden, you went 2.5 weeks after Trump becomes president, all of a sudden he's detained. So yeah, it's not really adding up. Again, not saying she actually did it, but if for some reason she was a part of that call, I don't think that would surprise a lot of viewers or listeners. So anyway, we just want her to get her divorce. We want her to be free.
Yes.
When people don't
Yes.
want to be married to people anymore, they have
Yeah.
the right to not be. So, we're just, I think there was also some issues with like them enforcing. He didn't really want to enforce the prenup because I think the prenup like was very, I think it actually favored her in terms of some things that she wanted. And it seems like he was fighting her on that as well. This is even before the ICE stuff. So it's just been an uphill battle to get through this. And so, we just want the divorce to be over with her. We don't know what's going to
Yes.
happen with the ICE situation with him. But the Black Lawyers Podcast will keep you posted. We will definitely continue to follow this story. Thank you so much for playing Reality
Oh,
Tea Hot Topics with us. Thank you so much. But this interview is technically all about you. And so we wanted to just first start off with who were you before the TV personality, the lawyer? Like, who were you before all of this?
I feel like I was the same person. I mean, I think that one of the biggest compliments I can get is from people who knew me before and say that I haven't changed,
Oh, wow.
that or they watched me on television or they see stuff I'm doing now or they hear me on my podcast and they're like, no, that's actually Rachel. That's who she is. I think I've been fortunate to step into all of this after I had gone finished school, started a career and I was in my 30s, as opposed to who knows what I would have been if I had jumped into this in my 20s. But yeah, I mean, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a friend. Um, I love to have a good time. I always have. Big Rach is my nickname. That started in school. Nothing has changed with that. I was always a person who was independent, loved sports, loved to meet people, loved to loved new experiences, really loved to challenge myself, always was very involved, like even in obviously high school, but in college, I pledged in a sorority, I was a part of certain committees. I really I went to a predominantly white school, well, I guess same with college, but a small Christian private school from age 3 all the way to 18.
Oh,
So when I
wow.
went to college, even though I went to University of Texas at Austin, which is a PWI, I wanted to immerse myself in with the Black people because I didn't have that
Oh,
opportunity at
yeah.
the small private school I went to. So I
Mhm.
was very involved in what was happening with the Black community, in making sure we were represented well, and really doing things for the culture when I was there.
Mhm.
So I've like it's interesting because the things I've done now, like saying all of that and then seeing what I do with higher learning
Mhm.
makes sense because those are the things that I was doing before. I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer. I
Mhm.
just didn't know what kind of lawyer I wanted to be. I
Mhm.
switched my major from government to sports management when I was in school because I'm such a big sports fan. I worked for the athletic department. I eventually went to law school to focus to a school that had a focus on sports law. So yeah, like I feel like I've been the same person without a camera
In your
or a
face.
microphone. Yeah, the same values, traits
Mhm.
still were there, just in a different setting.
Well, you said that you knew you always wanted to be a lawyer, but not necessarily what type of lawyer. Why did you know you were always wanted to be a lawyer? Like I feel like I'm kind of like a unicorn. I actually knew, I think in like the second grade, don't ask, but we were doing like a mock
Same.
trial in the second grade and I got picked the lawyer role and I was like, oh, I won my fake case. And then just from that point on, they're like, how does the second grader already know? So what was there an influence kind of early on? How did you even know what a lawyer was? Like, how was it even
Yeah.
introduced to you?
I was 7, so second grade,
Okay, okay,
right there,
right.
when I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. And it was two things. One, and this always ages me, was the show Matlock. There was so much that I wasn't allowed to watch on television, and Matlock was one of the things, and I was
Okay,
obsessed with that show. So I would watch him do all these. There was, it was criminal law.
criminal law.
So the mystery of it all, and it just, I was intrigued. Now Matlock's back on television in a different way. So that's,
Yeah.
I definitely aging myself, that the remake is out. But, and also my dad was a lawyer at the time. And
Okay,
so
know
I
that.
just imagined, I mean, not imagined, like I admired my dad so much. My dad, around 7, my dad became the city attorney for Dallas. And I just remember that being such a big deal. First Black city attorney of Dallas. I just looked at my dad like a superhero. I just thought it
Mhm.
was so incredible. I remember as a kid going to City Hall and running through the halls and being in his office, and he felt like a king to me as a kid. And so I always wanted to be just like him. So between those two, I can it was definitely that age because things were happening for me. So yeah.
Awesome. And I watched you on TV. I remember your dad being a lawyer. I don't know. I've watched so much
But
TV.
he wouldn't be on the show.
Okay,
He's a
because I'm like, I
um,
feel like I would have remembered that. I am like, I would have remembered him being a lawyer. See, I knew I was going to learn something new. That's awesome that your
yeah.
dad was a lawyer. No, that's a huge influence because a lot of us going to law school, because again, we actually is opposite. Most people go to a law school and it's, not, predominantly Black. It's not an HBCU. So it's like you're kind of like the only one in the classroom.
Right.
Maybe you don't have any family members that are already lawyers. Like you don't have any guidance. It's like you're the first to do it. So I think that's huge. And shout out to your dad for being such a great influence over you, and being one of the reasons why you did become a lawyer. What was your favorite law school class?
Oof. I'm not a great student. I'm just gonna put that out there right now. I
Yo,
I
yo.
wasn't. I wasn't trying to be top of the class. I wasn't. I had somebody was like, the person who gets A's in law school,
Yeah.
they become professors.
Uh-huh.
I can't remember what B's were,
Yeah, but it's
but
like
whatever it was with C's,
C's.
they were on it. And I was like, well, I didn't make C's, but I just was just like,
I'm
that's
not
me.
I'm not like the A student. Yeah, it's not really the A students that you end up seeing like do necessarily the biggest things. I mean, if you think
Yeah.
about it, a lot of our leaders that were also lawyers didn't even pass the bar the first time. So it's not like school and exams are not an indicator. And if you're a student listening to this, yes, we want you to pass the exams and pass the bar and all that. But if you're not doing as well as maybe you've done in college or high school, because law school is a different animal, don't feel too bad because yeah, I want to say I was like a B minus student in law school. Like,
Same.
and so I was not an A loss. I just let go. I mean, I would get an A. I let go of that dream of trying to be like top of the class. That wasn't me either. So yeah, if we are examples, let us be the examples that you can still go on and do great things, even if you're not a law student. I think my
Correct.
favorite class was probably just like contracts. I just like reading contracts. Like I was
Oh,
good at them. I think that was my favorite, and probably like an entertainment law class, like an IP class, just because I just love anything has to do with like creativity and helping artists. So I kind of also knew that was my path a little early on. So if I were to think of a favorite class, that probably that probably would.
I
You didn't like
I had the hardest contract teacher. It was known that this was like, oh gosh, this is what I'm gonna have. Um, I think his name was Trevino. But I wish contracts was interesting to me. Just like I wish constitutional law was like now I understand it so
why
much
it's so important. Yeah, I didn't get
better.
it back then either. Yeah.
Right. I don't know what it is. And then you leave law school and it just clicks. Same with contracts. The moment I was done with contracts, it clicked to me. But in
Mhm.
it, I don't know why. I just couldn't understand it the same way. But I can't even imagine being a law student right now with constitutional law. I mean, a law professor must be having a field day with the exams because it's just changing so much. But if I had to pick a favorite class, I would say because I was a sports law focus, I was sports and criminal law. I loved criminal law classes. I
Mhm.
actually worked
Oh
as a
yeah,
public defender
for sure.
my third year in law school, and I loved it. Um, but it would be amateur sports law, which again has changed so much because now, college students can profit off their name, image, and likeness. So the rules are totally different.
Totally
But at the
different.
time, they couldn't. So it was really interesting. It covered like, Olympics, it covered um, high school, it covered college. So, and that was the intro into professional sports. There was another class I took, I don't remember the name of it, but it was as if you were an agent. And
Okay.
that was
Yeah.
really cool. So we studied like collective bargaining agreements and stuff like that. So it was
Okay.
fun.
Yeah,
Hmm.
no, that seems fitting. Well, you obviously finished law school and you went on to be a practicing attorney in Texas. You, I believe, did criminal defense, litigation.
Oh,
What did you do?
I
Okay,
did some litigation.
oh, not criminal defense, civil defense litigation. I think
Yes,
that's what I meant to say. Yeah,
yes.
civil defense
I
litigation. So how was that?
I had a journey. So I was a public defender, to your
Okay.
point, my
Okay.
third year in law school. There was a program that allowed you to be paired with a public defender, and you could
Mm.
eventually have a case. So I was doing like revocation hearings. I was going to jail. It was
Wow.
very, very interesting.
Wow.
And I almost had a trial and it just didn't happen. But then I went to do municipal law after I passed the Texas bar. And that helped me learn litigation, the rules of it on a very small scale. So we were
Mhm.
representing all these municipalities out of Dallas, and I actually would go to trial on
Mhm.
speeding tickets, on running stop signs. I'd have to call a jury. Can you imagine being called to be on a jury for someone running a stop sign, every juror was mad. It's like pay the ticket, get on a payment plan. It's just it was wild, but I always wanted to be a public defender, but I really enjoyed the power that I had, even in municipal law and its Class C misdemeanors, of being, they didn't really call me a prosecutor, but that's what I was because I worked right hand in hand with police officers. I would watch footage. I would see some injustices that were happening, and I was able to say, we're dismissing this. Yes, it was on a smaller scale, but still. And it made me realize the power of the prosecution. I left that and then I went to do civil defense litigation. I did a lot of insurance defense. And
Okay.
then my last firm moved around a bit, which speaks to my personality. I'm a restless person. My last job, I did a lot of premise liability work.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting. You know, I say this, percentage or this statistic all the time on this podcast, but less than 5% of lawyers are black, less than 2.5%
That's
are
crazy.
black. So, you are a unicorn if you are able to become a black woman in this profession. Was there ever a time that you felt when you were working, like either in school or working, where you felt like maybe if you were a man or maybe if you were white or just not black, that maybe you would have been treated a little differently?
Oh, for sure. I mean, not only was I a black woman, which I didn't even know that statistic, which is wild,
Yeah.
I looked very young at the
Yeah, I was gonna
time. I mean,
say, and
I
you
was
still look young, age, Rachel.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I
Age.
was 2'6". I looked
Okay.
like a baby.
Right.
So people would come in when I was working for the city, and I'd sit there and defense attorneys would come in and try to make deals with me for their client.
Mm-hmm.
And they walked right past me. They were like, "Oh, I'm waiting for
The
the
lawyer.
attorney." And I was like, "It's me." And they're like, "No, it's not." They thought I was the law clerk. They thought I was an assistant or something. They thought
Exactly.
anything but. No one would walk, not no one, but a lot of people would walk in and automatically assume, "Oh, it can't be her."
Right.
I had times when I was, arguing a motion in front of a judge and an attorney would just like berate me in front of, the whole courtroom, in front of the judge, like talk to me in such a disrespectful way. I was in a deposition one time and I was sitting second chair, but I was running the deposition. And the attorney who was first chair that I was working with was an older white male. The way he would talk to him versus how he would talk to me, he would shush me, he would yell at me. I would say something, he would ignore me and talk directly to him. So definitely dealt with the microaggressions. I dealt with that. Somebody tell me one time I was too pretty to be an attorney, which I know they thought that that was a
A
compliment, but they were
compliment.
looking at me like,
Mm-hmm.
this isn't what they said you should be doing TV, which I'm sure that wherever that man is now is like,
He said, I predicted it.
I inspired it. I inspired it. But yeah, definitely dealt with, and such is the burden that we walk through life, not just as a black person, but as black women. We know what comes with being a black woman in this society. So yeah, I definitely dealt with it.
Well, that actually transitions nicely into my next question. You were a great advocate for VP Kamala Harris. We saw you on the trail. You did so much. Um, what are your thoughts on? I probably already know the answer, but what are your thoughts on Americans knowingly choosing? At least for the ones that did vote, the majority of people voting and actually choosing to your point, an accomplished, instead of choosing an accomplished black woman who was a lawyer, had worked in all branches of government. I mean, just the list goes on. She was compassionate. I mean, just the list goes on. And then knowingly chose someone that said, well, if you elect me, I'm going to be a dictator on day one. What are
Hmm.
your thoughts on people like being comfortable enough to do that?
I think it also just speaks to what's happening now with DEI in this country. You look at someone, and I dealt with this in ways on The Bachelor. You look at someone and you automatically have preconceived notions about who they are and what they are and how you think they got to where they are. Trump is a white male. He's given grace, he's given the benefit of the doubt, and in ways that as black people, especially as black women, we will never be given that. You line up Kamala Harris's accomplishments with President Trump's accomplishments, and immediately people start butting the things. Well, She must have had help. Oh, she must have, what were the rumors? Slept her way to the top. Oh, she really isn't that smart. She did this. And it's like, no, she worked twice as hard, if not three times as hard to get to where she is. Oh, she's really not even black. Oh, she accomplished that because she's not black. There's certain things that they will never hold space for us or give grace to us as they will and excuse white people. There has to be a reason why these things happen for them. And that's kind of what we're seeing with DEI. And it just shows the way that not only that people think in this country, but what people are willing to do to protect their place in this country. And that's also what it really comes down to. They don't want to see the advancement of someone who doesn't look like them because then they feel that that takes their power away rather than us all being able to have a seat at the table. In 2016, America was not ready for a woman. I'll go back to, Hillary's obviously not black, but she's a woman. They weren't ready for that. They made excuses as to the things that she was doing. They ignored things that Trump was doing, but held her to a completely different standard. 8 years later, nothing has changed. If not, it's worse. And they were never going to give that to Kamala Harris, no matter how much the momentum and the excitement was behind her.
They
America
just weren't
just
going to give it.
doesn't see black women in that way.
Yeah, no, I told someone that. I was like, you know, getting over 200 votes in less than 90 days, when you only need, 200 and something to win in the first place. So, like, the fact that what she did was so remarkable,
Yeah.
that it's just like, and I know it's kind of like sports. Well, it doesn't matter. You have to have, there's a winner and there's a loser. And so I get that. But I still feel like what she did was so remarkable. And I actually said accomplished lawyer, this and that, and a dictator, but not just like you said, a dictator, someone that was a convicted felon. If Kamala had one conviction of any sort on her thing, that it wouldn't even have allowed her to even become the nominee. They wouldn't even allow her to become the nominee.
Right.
So yeah, definitely I think if someone thinks that by you, to your point, accomplishing and becoming, being able to achieve a certain role, if that's going to take away from them in some way, like you said, the vote was driven by fear,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
yeah, I'm not sure when America will be ready for, like you said, a woman president of any race, to be honest with you, because I almost think they look at the gender too first. So I don't know. I don't know if and when, like I said, it hasn't even been a full 60 days in this administration and I'm already exhausted. So, I know we just have to look to the future. We just have to look to the future to hope like whoever is the nominee, whoever we can put up, will be a candidate that most Americans can vote for so that we're not living in what unfortunately we're living in now. You mentioned The Bachelor. Obviously, you were the first Black woman, and I want to say now there is a new Bachelor. He's a Black guy. I literally watched 5 seconds of it yesterday. I
I
think
don't
he's like
watch.
maybe the second one, maybe the second Black man to do it. But yeah, I just was just like scrolling. I was like, oh, there's another one, but I didn't like obviously watch it. But I remember when they announced you because everybody was sending it to me because I was also a lawyer. They're like, there's a lawyer that's gonna do it. I just remember it. I mean, that was so long ago, but I remember when everyone was like so excited to see, and it didn't even matter who you dated or who you chose. Like, to be honest, no one really cared about that. I was just like excited about like you and your
Hmm.
representation on TV. And so do you liken that experience a little bit in terms of like being, it's like when you're the first, what does it feel like when you're the first of something, like
Yeah.
in terms of that pressure?
It's interesting because I was fortunate to have a front row seat to watching that with my dad when, I mentioned earlier that he was the first Black city attorney and I saw what all that entails, the good and the bad. And then 6 years later, I saw my dad become the first Black federal judge in the Northern District of Texas. And I remember that. I remember going to Senate confirmation hearings for my dad. And so I saw it. I saw what an honor it was. I saw how exciting it was. I saw how the community rallied around him. I saw that the I don't know, just the respect of it all. But then I saw how his rulings were questioned in ways that others weren't. I saw how his peers treated him, or maybe, didn't respect him in certain ways. I saw it all. And I remember that even at a really young age. Sorry, my dogs were barking. I was trying to stop that. I remember that at a really young age. And so for me to be the first, to be honest, I don't think I understood the gravity of the situation because nobody in my circle watched The Bachelor. They were kind of like, oh, yeah, like, yeah, do it. You should do it. It'll be great. It'll be fun. Do you get to keep your job? And my job was super supportive. And I was like, yeah. And they were like, you should go for it. I didn't realize until the day before how widespread it was, what a big deal. I knew I was the first, but I was just kind of like, the show's kind of dying, right? Like nobody watches it. And then I remember I was getting ready to announce on Jimmy Kimmel. It's still not registering to me. I'm like, oh, that's what all the bachelorettes do. They go on Jimmy Kimmel to announce. And the stylist says, oh, the Hollywood Reporter picked it up. And I said, well, what's the Hollywood Reporter? I knew nothing. Then it became, I was like, oh my gosh, this is bigger than I thought. And I think if I had realized the gravity of the situation, I probably would have just said no. But I knew it was bigger than me and was contractually bound at that point. So
Yeah, at
yeah,
that
it's what
point.
it is.
Yeah.
But I just took it as a badge of honor. I thought, this show's been on for 15 years. Yes, it's a silly reality show, but it does mean a lot to so many people. It is representative of like you're this most desired person. So to look like me and for me to be representing myself as the most desired bachelorette, I thought somebody who looks like me needs to see this. They chose me for a reason. I know I can represent myself as not as a bachelorette, as a Black woman well. So that's what I focused on more than anything else. But it was scary, and I knew that I would be questioned.
You. How did they find you?
So my coworkers at my law firm actually signed me up. My coworkers came into my office. I just started this job. Maybe I was like 3 months in. And they were like, we think you should try out for The Bachelor. And I laughed and I was like, I don't watch that show, but I do know Black people don't go far. And thank God for people who see something in you that you don't see in yourself. And they said, no, Rachel, if you do it, you'll go far. And so I was like, all right. They were like auditions in 2 weeks. And one coworker went with me. We went down there and I actually tried to leave it early because it was taking too long. And they were like, wait, you're leaving to go to work? Wait a second. Can we skip you to the front of the line? And they did. And it was an easy process after that.
Wow. Yeah, I do think, like I said, you have like this natural light that I do think whoever said, like, oh, you should probably try to do some sort of television, like he was right, even though it was kind of like a backhanded, oh, you're too pretty to be a lawyer, be on TV. But thank goodness we can do it all. You can be a lawyer, you can pivot, you can be on television. Obviously you've done so much since then. I mean, you've done other TV shows, you've done news correspondent work, you have your own podcast. Um, Tell us about um, the Higher Learning podcast. And if someone hasn't listened to it yet, what should they expect? Like, how is it different from other podcasts? Like, tell us a little bit more about your podcast.
Yeah. Higher learning is something I'm so proud of because I thought leaving the show, I thought, I actually didn't think I'd be married. But like once I left with the fiance, I was like, okay, I'm gonna be married. I'm just gonna work in sports and entertainment law. Then I got the bug to wanting to do TV, but never did I think I would do podcasting and then I would fall in love with it so much. What's been so great about it is you get to create, as you know, your own community. And that's something to be so proud of. People who are interested in what you have to say and your dynamic with other people on your show. And they want to come back every week. And then you see them talking to other people who listen to the show, and it just creates this whole thing. That's powerful. You're also not beholden to any network or some boss telling you what you need to do and how to do it. And that's been really rewarding at the same time. And so higher learning, when Van and we were introduced through Bill Simmons, who knew us separately but thought we'd be great together. We met, we hit it off immediately. Like the chemistry has always been very instant between the two of us. We've always had a natural brother and sister relationship, which I feel like that's something that people don't always get. You feel like you're at the dinner table, at the family reunion, in the group chat. That's how back and we don't always get along. Like it's we get emotional, we argue, we agree, we stand up for each other. You get all of that like a real family. That's how we want people to feel. But it was supposed to start in March 2020, and then COVID happened. And so we ended up starting in May 2020, which we all know was a crazy month. We learned about Ahmaud Arbery. We learned about Breonna Taylor. George Floyd happened. Hannah Brown said the N-word on a live. And so it was like this batch, like which she's a former bachelorette. So it was just all this stuff that was happening. And our podcast was originally supposed to be a little lighter, which it's kind of gone back to that, but it just became a response to what was happening in the culture. And that's what you can get in higher learning. We have our big deal of the day. We talk about what's going on in the world, but then we talk about things that impact the culture, whether it's sports, whether it's entertainment, whether it's current affairs, whether it's an intersection and all of it, whether it's just some foolery that's happening on the internet that has everybody talking. It's something. And then we also try to bring experts on that can speak to things in ways that we can't. And so we have a rotating guests that come on to speak to some of the issues that we don't fully understand in this country. We use our podcast to promote and uplift people who are doing things like Chad Sanders just came on to promote his book, How to Sell Out. I knew Chad 17 years ago in an internship. And it's just crazy how that came back around full circle. So it's just a really great place, and I hope to do it forever. I love it so much.
No, that's great. Definitely. I've obviously listened to a couple of episodes, but definitely want you to plug the podcast. Last question. So you are a professional woman. You already gave you the statistic about, I think I gave you like less than 2.5% of lawyers are Black women.
Mhm.
Um, Less than a third of lawyers ever even get married or even stay married. So that
Huh,
is a
I
statistic.
get that.
Yeah, yeah. So, we're human beings too. We have feelings. We want love. But what would be your piece of advice? And it's not, this is obviously Black Lawyers Podcast. So you're speaking to lawyers and you're speaking to law students. So let's just say professional women. Because I think
Mhm.
whether you could be a doctor, I think any sort of male dominated field, when you're a professional woman, what is your best piece of advice when entering marriages in terms of how to protect yourself?
Well, prenup, prenup, prenup. I, okay, so one thing I want to say to what you were saying about lawyers not getting married, or what was the statistic about not about being divorced? That makes a lot of sense because of how we are taught to think in law school. We're
Mm,
taught streamline things, spot the issue, and work from there. That doesn't translate to personal life. And I remember dating during and after law school, and people would talk, and someone I was dating, and I was like, okay, can you just get to the point, get to the issue? Like, I couldn't turn it off. And I think that that's very hard. And I would look at them like they were stupid or they were dumb, and I couldn't soften it up. And, you're also taught to be so rigid, and then you're working all day in that way, and it's just hard to turn it off. And kudos to the people who are able to do it. And I think I learned that later, through a relationship and it ending, that, oh no, this is some of the issues. So I think you got to work that out in therapy or whatever, but being aware of it is the first thing, because I wasn't. But the advice that I would give to you is, it's not fair that as a professional woman you are looked at as, I'll go back. I have this thing where I say people love the idea of you, but not the reality of you. And so they love the idea of saying, oh, I have this hardworking woman. She's independent. She's a lawyer. She's smart. All like she provides for herself. I'm thinking of the song Webby, Indepen. Like there's a whole song about it.
even Miss Independent by Nia says all
Yeah,
those
like,
things.
but they don't want it. Look at Neo. Look at what Neo's doing. They don't want it. They like the idea, they love to say it, but when it comes to actually living that way, they don't like it. And it's so unfair because you work hard in one part of your life. People think that you can't be soft or surrender into a relationship. And what they don't understand, particularly as Black women, and I know you asked it in a more general way, but particularly as Black women, is we've always had to be strong and protect and, look out for our people, men, women, children, whatever, in a certain way. But the moment we feel safe, we are so willing to be that other side of things. And people just don't give us the benefit of the doubt to do that. So it's just a hard balance, I would say. But what I will say as the advice is to protect yourself in all ways. So protect yourself like I didn't with getting a prenup. It's so easy to say you'll get a prenup before you meet that person. And what happens to me, and I really want, and I'm sorry I'm being so long-winded because I really want to speak to this more in a bigger way. But what happens is, especially as career women, you get that person and you're so afraid to lose them. And you don't want to be told, up, there goes another one. She focused on her career. Up, she put logic over emotion. And so you want to hold on to it. And so you're willing to compromise in ways that you wouldn't have before in order to finally get the one thing that you haven't been able to get. That's what happened to me. And so I was like, well, one, they had more than me at the time, but I was just like, we'll grow together. They wouldn't do me like that. We'll look out for each other. And that's not true. You really learn who somebody is through divorce. So I will say it doesn't make you wrong. It doesn't make you hard up. It doesn't make, don't be, if a man does not want to sit down and give you a prenup, please just Google me and look at the story because that's literally what happened. There's a reason for that. They're doing that to protect themselves in the future. So you have to do the same thing. Somebody who really loves you is going to want to sit down and talk about a fair way to move forward. It's not selfish, it's life planning. It's estate planning. Look at it that way. And also protect yourself personally, whether that's therapy, whether that's a community of like-minded women who can share stories like what I'm talking about how it's not putting career over personal, but how I couldn't turn off the switch. And maybe you'll learn from other women who are, similarly situated. That's what I would say.
No, that's amazing advice. And it's interesting you said just look at it as like estate planning. Yeah, we don't, plan to have we don't plan to die. We don't plan to have our houses burned down or get in car accidents, but we have wills. We have car
Yeah.
insurance. We have life insurance. So prenup, just throw it in with all the other documents that you're going to have to do with this person. It's just one more document. Just look at it as a way to plan.
Right.
And you're right. You see the real person when they're at their worst. That's when you really see the person. And so if you have something in place, no matter how they're acting, once it gets to that point, all you have to do is then point to that document. So even though obviously you didn't do it for yourself, I definitely think sometimes some people say, other people have to learn your lesson. Like you didn't do it,
Hmm.
but like it'll actually help someone else.
Hmm.
So if that's
Hmm.
any condolences to you not doing it, you not doing it will help someone else in the future. So that's how
And
I
can
see
I
it.
also just
Yeah.
say, I think it's easy when you do go through something, whether it's a breakup of a long-term relationship, a marriage, a partnership, whatever it may be, it's so easy to become jaded. I'm going to say hopeful, but I don't want people to be delusional with their hope. But don't think that you aren't deserving of it either. That's just also
Yeah.
what I'll say.
Yeah. No, I mean you're like I said, whoever you said it first, you've always been the same person, the same light, the same, you know, energy that people saw when you were a lawyer, before you were a lawyer, when you're in school and things like that. You've literally just always been the same person. That person is deserving of like the love and the care and just like all the stuff that you want. Yeah, it shouldn't be like either or you have to just be this successful business person, professional entrepreneur, TV personality. And because of that, you just won't have the other thing. Like,
Right.
there's a way to have both, but it has to be the right person. And so we are going to manifest that for you, just like we manifested this interview. We're going to manifest that
Everybody,
for
for
you and
everybody,
everybody, for
what they want.
everybody, for everybody. We will mark, look, we will mark this episode when it happens. We're going to look. we're gonna say roll the tape. The Black Lawyers Podcast predicted it. With that being said, we end all of our episodes with the Black Excellence Moment of the Week because there's such craziness going on in the world. We try to bring some sunshine over here. History is the first Black man to win Best Costume. At the Oscars, he was one of the few Black winners. Of course, I wanted Cynthia Erivo to win, but maybe next time. But he did win for his costumes in Wicked, and he's done costumes for some other big movies as well. So we salute. As you said before, it's so funny when you always have to say the first. The first, it's
I know.
like even in 2025, we're like how you were the first Black lecturer. He's the first, like really? He's the first Black
Mhm.
male to win. So it's so
Crazy.
interesting when we're still saying the first in 2025, but we salute him. We congratulate him. Congratulations to all the nominees and obviously winners of this year's Oscars. And as always, we're rooting for everyone Black, everyone. Take care.